Man, I feel like the best move now is to say nothing, because that was great. I want you to know that I practice this talk down to the second, but it would be so foolish of me not to take a minute in the sort of spirit of change and learning to thank you all, thank the Schillers, but also all of you for being part of my journey and part of the changes that have happened to me over the last year and a half that moved me from working up the nerve to talk to work and give him my book, and then I'm driving in and I'm like, he's there, it's meant to be, pull over right here, to kicking off this freaking podcast summit. A year and a half, holy crap. And over that past year and a half, I've had many, many opportunities, but by far, this is the most exciting one for me, because I said, I'm going to be in a room full of people who love people as much as I do, and love their horses and their animal friends as much as I do. And what am I going to say to them? What is it that I know, or that I think I know, that might help them along their journeys? And I'm not going to lie, I got a little overexcited in this, and I didn't follow the rules. We're supposed to talk about one thing really well for 18 minutes, and I'm talking about at least 2 things, maybe 5, depending on how you count. So I'm going to touch on a bunch of big topics, but I really hope you will come talk to me if you're like, I thought that was interesting and I want to know more. I'm here to learn with you all. I'm so, so honored to be here. So thank you all for being part of this journey. So this is what came up for me, but I think an alternate title for my talk would be How to Become the Human Your Horse Deserves. And in that light, I want to acknowledge that there may be some of you that already feel like you are the human your horse deserves. And honor that. Like, if you are in that space, the only thing I can say to you is learn to turn down the outside messaging about how you need to be more. Because that is everywhere. And I have so many people wanting me to tell them how to hack my brain and improve X. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is sort of more in line with my lens, which is there are different ways of getting there. And the way you're getting there might already be all right. Okay, so I don't want anything I say today to feel like you need to do X, or to make you feel like it's impossible to change. In my journey, I find myself in situations where I'm learning something and I'm totally inspired, and I'm like, yes, this is going to change my life. And then I go out and it's like, wait, this isn't how it looked. It's difficult. What gets in the way? Along these lines, what I want you to know is that anything I say today, or if you bump into me in the hallways, or certainly over drinks, that tells you your brain makes you this way, does not mean either that you were born this way or that you're stuck this way. We are dynamic beings. In fact, our brains grow and change from every lived and imagined experience. So if anything I say today sticks, if you remember anything from any of these podcast presenters, which you will, it's because your brain has grown. It's growing right now in this moment. It's created a new connection that you can retrieve and use to drive your behavior. And because we learn from every real and imagined experience, every single one of us have very different brains that have been shaped by our lifetime of experiences, of dreams, of hopes, of fears, all the things we noodle on. And I just want to acknowledge how excited I am to be in this place, because I think we all, as Warwick said, have a unique experience to learn from the people who are on and off the stage, to learn from their lived experiences. Okay, so for those of you like me who sometimes might learn something and feel inspired and then get into the arena with your horses and things don't work out as planned, you're going to meet Eclipse, aka Lip. This is my guru. Why can change feel so hard? Unless you're a yearling on the lunge line going 100 yearling miles per hour, and you can flip it. He can change on a dime. Why can change feel so hard? What are the things that get in the way when it comes to your brain? I'm going to talk today about 2 different ways of knowing, 2 different ways that our experiences shape our behaviors. and I'm going to talk about them from a neuroscience perspective. Now I get to hear who are the Game of Thrones fans in the room, right? It's been a while. And intuition and belief through my lens are really different ways that our experiences shape our behavior. They're different starting points, they're different middle points, and they're different end points. I wanted to start with a textbook definition. So intuition, if you ask the dictionary, is a thing one knows or considers without the need for conscious reasoning. In my sort of line of work, I think sometimes intuition rises to the conscious level, feels like glimmerings or a gut feeling, but a lot of times the things that are driving our behavior we're absolutely unaware of, and that is in the same realm of this intuitive way of knowing. Whereas belief, the definition is trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something. And this is something that we can often use to talk about an idea that we hold that we maybe don't have any data for, we don't need it, right? Something that we believe to be true. Language is messy. It's one of the things I study. If you heard that very fast, very long bio that Warwick read for me, language is one of the things I study. Language feels like it's a specific behavior that allows us to understand one another, but it's highly imperfect and ambiguous. I like to go to this very neat place in the brain where we can talk about the ways that intuition and belief are different. And this is what I'm going to go over today. From a neuroscience perspective, intuition and belief lie on a continuum, and these two different ways of learning and knowing and changing differ in all of these ways. They are represented in different brain areas. I'm going to go into this in detail. They have different learning trajectories. They change on a different time scale. They have different constraints on the amount of information you can consider when using this kind of knowing to behave, and they have different mechanisms of change, which is really what I'm focusing on here. So the neuroscience, intuition shows up a lot here. If you know, you know. It could be a banana phone, the internet of intuition. And I think intuition is so powerful. And I think that there are some limitations when it comes to overriding your intuitive way of being. So this is baby Chantel. You can see this is for my mom who came here. Love you, Mom. My mom dressed me in Western clothes to take English writing lessons because none of us knew better, but that's fine. It was very prescient for the future. You can see, I think, in the eyes, for those of you who are good at reading minds, that baby Chantel is imagining some future full of adventures. In our intuitive way of knowing, we have our entire lifetime of experiences, even those that come from before we can explicitly recall our histories. And this is how it works in the brain. I learned this in undergraduate. It's called Hebbian learning after the neuroscientist who invented it. The easy way to remember is neurons that fire together, wire together. So in this massive network of interconnected neurons in the brain, if two neurons are synchronized, if they come on and off at the same time, your brain decides that these two neurons are responding to the same pattern or the same kind of thing in the environment. And when it does that, when that happens repeatedly, the connections between these two neurons grow so that you need less data to actually experience that same project. So look what happens if we only get neuron A firing. Now, because they have these increased connections, your brain can perceive the pattern with less data. And as this scales up to 86 billion neurons over your lifetime of experiences, what you get is what I have called the highly technical term of information processing galore, right? And I think that many of the experienced presenters here that are talking to you about what it is they do are behaving in a large way based on this internet of intuition, or this information processing galore that's stored in 86 billion neurons that have maintained the statistics of your lifetime of experiences by changing the connections between them. And as this experience changes, you move from being an infant born into the blooming, buzzing confusion of the world to somebody with a finite brain that takes snapshots of this infinite and dynamic universe around us, takes tiny bits of information, and just does a massive amount of filling in the blanks. Intuition lets us do huge amounts of information processing in real time, but really by connecting the dots and making our best guess about what's going on based on our lifetime of experiences. These are drawn off of a movie, and they're blurry, but intuition can be really wonderful and magical and powerful in moments like this. For those of you who heard the podcast, this is my too young, too small, too green guru, Kiara. And sometimes I'm with Kiara and there's no voice in my head. I'm in the flow, and we're just being together. And I think I'm making her do things, but I'm not exactly sure how, and it's super freaking cool. It's great because I can respond to her with her in real time, and I can use all of this information, and it never makes it into that little critical voice in my head. It's just, we're just there, we're doing, we're being, we're grooving. It's wonderful. It's powerful. However, there's my guru. That's where your whole lifetime of for those of you who are not quite there at being the human you think your horse deserves, our lifetime of baggage lives there as well. And Eclipse, Lip, we call him. Man, when I connected myself to that rope, to him, did I discover a lot of shit that I had that I didn't know was there. I'm like, wow, okay. And we're going to see some more evidence of that. So I don't think behaving according to intuition is good or bad. But I think you need to understand that maybe it can feel really good and you can be in the groove and you can process a lot of information live. But there might be some stuff in there that might come out when you start interacting with another being. And here's the kicker. Knowing better when it comes to intuition doesn't necessarily translate into doing better. So I might say these things to you, and your explicit believing brain might say, yes, yes, that. But that baggage, that lifetime of experiences is perfectly willing to exist under the surface there in conflict with the things you explicitly believe about yourself, your horse, or your way of being with them. So who sees blue and black? Who sees white and gold? So if I tell you that this dress is blue and black, and you see it as, for those of you who see it as white and gold, it's because your brain is using your lifetime of experience with light to decide that that dress is lit from the back. Your brain decides that it's in a shadow, and it subtracts blue and black for you. Thank you, brain. Just because I told you that doesn't change it, doesn't change what you see. Your brain has used its lifetime of experiences to adapt to the environment it thinks you're going to operate in, and it says this is in a shadow and it's white and gold, case closed, the end, right? So it's harder, when we're teaching you new things, it's harder to override that lifetime of experiences. You can do it in a controlled way, but it's kind of like speaking to intuition, using belief to change intuition, is kind of like if I told you, okay, everybody, now we're just going to walk like this, left foot forward. You can all do it, right? Oh, I almost forgot already. You can do it, but it's not going to be natural for a very long time, and you can't have a conversation with someone else and do it, right? You can reprogram your lifetime of experience. Hey, if there's anyone who already walked like this, let's hang out. That's cool. You can do it, but it's not going to be natural for a very long time, right? That's how speaking belief to your intuition kind of works. Let's talk about belief. 5 minutes and 46 seconds to talk about belief. This is Kenny Pratt. He's the character in the next story. Some of you might have seen right away that this donkey, whose name is Peter the Jackass, is chained to a tree, which makes me feel sad. This is 1952. I like to tell myself the story that my dad there with his holster is coming to spring Peter the Jackass from his confinement. But this is a story about how belief shapes the way we understand the world. So I was 18 years old. I was visiting my dad for the summer. We're just going to say for politeness that my dad was a great storyteller and sort of famous for embellishing the truth at the best. And so I was at my dad's house. My stepmom was getting the mail. She got a letter from the highway patrol. And she's like, damn it, Pratt, did you get another ticket? And so I'm like drawn in by the drama. Ooh, another ticket. She opens this letter, and I'm not going to ask you to read it, but inside is a hand-typed letter from the highway patrol thanking my dad for saving a man from a burning car. From certain death, and it says it's a honor to know that brave citizens like you still exist. So in my mind, in my heart, what I felt was a mixture of pride and guilt, because my dad had already told me the saving the guy from the burning car story, and my brain, based on my previous experience with him, instantly decided that that was bullshit. It's like, the seatbelt, I didn't know if the man was ripping in half or the seatbelt was ripping off as I pulled with all of my might to pull him from a car. It was true. And he's not here anymore, so I don't know how many of those stories were true, but this is one. How does that work in the brain? Belief, the things that we can speak to and talk about, actually works like a meta goal in your frontal lobe. And your beliefs are a value system that your brain protects fiercely, to the extent that it will turn up and down the signals on the world that are consistent or inconsistent with the things that you think you know. You guys didn't think you were going to get away without seeing a brain, did you? This is the basal ganglia. It's fun to say. It's my favorite brain area. A bunch of little nuclei in the middle of the brain that work on dopamine to actually filter the world around you. So things that are rewarding or consistent with your beliefs go through this go pathway. Two negatives make a positive. It's been a while since any of us were in those kind of math classes, I'm guessing. So when things go through the go pathway, it actually turns up your awareness on the things that are consistent with your beliefs. And when they go through the node pathway, 3 negatives, it turns down your awareness on things that are inconsistent with your beliefs. And in this way, your frontal lobe can work through these basal ganglia to filter in a massive way the information you take in and learn from. This is me and Gypsy, my first heart horse. You can guess what kind of learner I am. People differ. The strength of these two pathways is totally independent, and there's a genetic basis for it, and we differ in how strongly we learn by moving toward the signals that have been turned up or moving away from the signals that have been turned down. Here's a cool thing I found out, and I read it so you don't have to. Our horses also have both of these pathways. And in fact, every vertebrate animal has these 2 ways of turning up and turning down signals on the world. 500 million years. Guess what doesn't have it? AI, just saying. Okay. So how do these beliefs shape our behaviors? What you see here on the left is Kiara, my heart horse, doing a karate kick to the side, and you can't see my face, but I'm chilling, I'm laughing. Haha, it's funny. Here's Eclipse dancing the dance of his people. And I'm probably pee-peeing a little bit, because I've decided that he's this, wild, dangerous little thing. Think about all the beliefs that exist out there. This kind of horse is like this. Mares versus geldings are like this. There are some characteristics that are true on average, but how is that affecting how you see this horse in the now? I suspect that every professional horse trainer in this room listens carefully to the stories that the owners tell about their horses and then promptly forget it and just look at the horse that showed up and treats it, right? We're turning up and turning down. Why stories? Look at my face. Oh, no, you didn't. I'm brushing him. And he's deciding he still wants to play with his ball, but you can see in my face that I have a whole history of explanations for why I'm having a whole reaction to this. I swear we love each other, don't you worry. Here's my friend Warwick Schiller. You guys ever seen him with a horse? This is pulled off of a video where this thing was zipping around. It wound up in the Zen pen. Look at Warwick, he's fine. He's so relaxed, there's no why story. But guess what? When we do that, what I just did, when we compare ourselves to somebody who has thousands of hours on the other string of thousands of horses, we tell ourselves a why story about why we're having difficulties. And if we say, I'm just not good at horses, that turns up and turns down the volume of the way that we behave with our horses. So what I really want to say is we can speak to our beliefs, but any belief that we have that is central to our identity, we're committed to that, is sticky. Don't worry, I'm done. It's sticky. It protects itself. So what I really want to ask you all to do is to examine your why stories like a scientist. What's my data for believing this thing? And is there something else that could explain this phenomenon? Oh, one more thing. Be careful about social comparisons because other people's efforts are often invisible to you. Remember that the things you practice in your imagination and in the round pen shape your brain. And with practice, the beliefs or the things that you've learned can become effortless. And finally, this is for you, Warwick. Be curious, not judgmental. I don't need to say this to this room about others, but remember to turn it on to yourself as well. And I'm dedicating this to my fellow Ted Lasso fan. And when in doubt, hug it out. Thank you so much.
You stay here.
Okay.
We're trying something new this year. After each of the presenters, I'm going to come up here and just have a little chat with them about whatever I feel like having a chat about. Possibly about your presentation, possibly about stuff. I told you guys she was funny, didn't I? The bit you said about your dad.
Oh my God.
Okay, so that's one of those things. So you said that he was known for embellishing the truth.
Mm-hmm. Possibly.
And he had told you this story about the thing, and I'm sure that you kind of thought most of that didn't happen.
Right.
Like the guy had a flat tire and you changed his tire. You didn't pull someone from a burning vehicle. Yeah. So how was that? Did that change? Like after the letter came, then did you believe all the stories?
Nope. Not all of them. However, I think that the important thing is it helped me to be a lot more humble about, all or none kind of decisions. And I think, as I have, didn't you think you knew everything when you were 18, or was that just me? I think that as I...
it was when I was 50.
You're ahead. I've always been kind of slow. I think the older I get and the more I learn, the more I appreciate not knowing anything. And I think that the moral of that story is like when you think you know, you prevent yourself from learning. Like knowing is the antithesis of learning and changing. And so I think that that's why I said within my lens or based on my experiences, this is how I think things work because, and that's why I wanted to start you with that story because we hold tight to these attitudes about people, about our horses or whatever, and they prevent us from seeing who they are today, now, and hearing and learning. So the more I learn, the more I walk through this world going, I do not know anything, and it feels great. I'm so comfortable with that. I'm like, I don't know anything. It might be great to stand up here and pretend like I know all the answers, but it's not that.
The podcast has been, because of amazing guests like you, the podcast has, affected a lot of people. And I think there is something that happens when you think you have a truth about all these things in life, and then someone does something, here's something, whatever, that challenges one of those truths and you see it completely differently, then you start to go, it's kind of like all your dad's stories, and you start to go, well, what other things did I know as a truth all my life? I was raised with this, and what else, what else could be different? It's like that story with your dad, and I was talking to Julie Ripley the other day, so Julie will be presenting, I'm not sure today or tomorrow, And we were talking about the podcast and all the things, and we both came up with the term that this is all about unraveling the bullshit story we've been told.
Yes, yes.
That's what I think that's what a lot of you podcast guests have done for me and for the listeners is do that thing to where you challenge a belief of ours, and that gets us to, it gives you the permission or gives you the idea that what other beliefs can I challenge. You know, it's a little bit like when Robin does the ice baths with people, you know, they're in this thing that they were afraid of, and they end up in a peaceful place in the middle of this chaos. And, you know, she kind of says to them, so this is what you were afraid of. What else do you think you're afraid of? You know, you only think you're afraid of it. So, yeah, I just wanted to ask you about that story because that's one of those aha moments we have to where, yeah.
And I guess the piece I would add is like some of the stories we've inherited and we don't even know that that wasn't our idea. You know, we don't even know that that's in the water, so to speak. And some of the stories we tell ourselves, and those ones are so hard, you know, we tell ourselves every day these things and we're not even aware that that's just a story, that it's not true necessarily. And I think that by this turning up and turning down process, we can notice the things that make us feel right. And completely ignore the things that could challenge that. So I think that's what's so awesome about being here is everyone in this room kind of wants to be wrong about something or learn,
or everything.
Yeah, so it's great. It's awesome.
I'm willing to be proven wrong about everything this weekend. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ulrich.
That was awesome.